Yeah, I think it's like cowardly, to be honest, like because they didn't speak about him like this when he was here. If you ask anybody that played against him, they all say he was the best player in the league. He was the most terrifying person to guard.
Paul Pierce sat on a podcast and really told the world that Kobe Bryant was never the face of the NBA. And that is exactly why this clip hit people the wrong way. Because this is Paul Pierce, the same guy who had his own battles with Kobe, the same guy who stood across from him in the finals, the same guy who watched Kobe stay at the center of the league's biggest conversations for years. So when Pierce looked into that camera and tried to act like Kobe never carried that face of the league energy, fans instantly saw it as more than just an opinion. It sounded personal. Because let's be real, Kobe was not some side character. He had 5 championships, global respect, legendary work ethic, and a fan base that treated every game like an event.
Yeah, I think it's like cowardly, to be honest, like because they didn't speak about him like this when he was here.
Whether people loved him or hated him, everybody had an opinion on him. That is what being the face of the NBA looks like. You do not have to like it, but you cannot pretend it was not real. And the timing made it even messier.
But now that Kobe isn't here, we want to bring up the times where he wasn't as efficient or he shot long too.
Pierce did not say this when Kobe could answer him directly. He said it now, when the conversation feels one-sided. That is why people felt like it crossed a line. But then somebody actually did respond. Jayson Tatum, a Celtic, went on the Pivot podcast and did something most active NBA players avoid. He called out the disrespect clearly, and the word he used was not soft, not vague, and not easy to brush off. Cowardly.
Now that he's not here, you want to try to erase history.
That is the exact word Jayson Tatum used, and the moment he said it, the entire conversation changed. Because now, this was not just fans defending Kobe Bryant anymore. This was a current Boston Celtics superstar openly calling out one of the biggest Celtics legends in franchise history. That almost never happens publicly, especially inside NBA circles where players usually protect each other. But Tatum clearly felt like Paul Pierce had crossed a line. And when you look at the pattern, you can understand why people reacted so strongly.
Then I found out he had gone on like a 40-mile bike ride at like 11 p.m. that night, got in at like 2 a.m., and then he was in the weight room when I got down there at 7:30, so.
Pierce has spent years taking shots at Kobe's legacy from behind microphones and podcast tables. First, he argued Pau Gasol deserved the 2010 Finals MVP over Kobe. Then he pushed Kobe out of his all-time top 5 completely. Then he started talking like he himself was the best player in basketball during Boston's championship run. And now, this whole Kobe was never the face of the league argument got added to the pile.
If you ask anybody that played against him, they all say he was the best player in the league. He was the most terrifying person to guard.
At a certain point, fans stopped seeing these as random basketball takes. They started seeing a personal obsession. Because every time Kobe's name comes up, Pierce somehow finds a new way to chip away at it. But the problem with Pierce's argument is that the players who actually competed against Kobe remember a completely different reality. They remember the preparation, the intensity, and the pressure that came with guarding him. While Pierce was talking himself up publicly, stories about Kobe behind the scenes were already becoming legendary. 40 miles on a bike late at night, back in the gym before sunrise, lifting weights while teammates were still asleep. That level of obsession separated Kobe from almost everybody else in the league, and players noticed it immediately. That is why so many former opponents still speak about him with a different kind of respect.
I still couldn't stop it. And I knew what he was about to do over and over and over again, you know? And that's a part of his greatness, man.
Because Kobe did not just score points. He got inside your preparation, your confidence, and your entire game plan. Players said he would study every movement, memorize tendencies, and attack your weak spots over and over again. Sometimes he would even tell defenders exactly what move was coming next, and they still could not stop it. That is the player Pierce is trying to downplay. And this is where the story gets colder, because Kobe was never quiet about dominating people. He wanted you to feel it in real time.
This motherfucker walked past our bench while we was in huddle, said, "You left me too much time." Came out, hit the fucking game winner. Right?
The trash talk, the confidence, the stare after the shot dropped, all of it became part of the experience when you played against him. And maybe the most brutal part of all is that so many former players tell the exact same stories. Different teams, different years, same conclusion. Kobe Bryant made people feel helpless on the court, and no podcast debate is going to erase that. Kobe Bryant was the kind of player who would walk past an entire opposing team huddle during a game, calmly tell them the game was over, then go right back onto the court and prove it on the very next possession. That is what made him different. The disrespect always came with results. It came with the scoreboard, the highlights, the championships, and the moments nobody could erase. Paul Pierce talks into microphones years later. Kobe handled things directly on the floor in front of everybody watching.
Then we look over and he's tearing out the picture of Paul Pierce. So he cuts it out and he folds it up, he puts it in his pocket, and like we're all looking at him, like what's going on? He's like, motivation.
That contrast is the real reason so many former players side with Kobe whenever this debate comes up. And the story somehow gets even colder after the 2008 finals. Boston embarrassed the Lakers in 6 games, and most people assumed Kobe would just move on and focus on the Olympics. But that is not how his mind worked. While sitting in a lounge during the Beijing Olympics with members of the women's national team nearby, Kobe reportedly sat there quietly with a newspaper in his hands. Then he did something that perfectly explains his mentality. He cut out a picture of Paul Pierce from the newspaper and folded it into his pocket. No speech, no dramatic scene, just silent motivation. While Pierce was celebrating the championship, Kobe was already planning the response. And 2 years later, everybody saw how that response ended. Game 7 of the 2010 finals, Lakers versus Celtics. Kobe walking away with his 5th championship after beating Pierce on the biggest stage possible.
When you're on Chicago, I was with the Beatles, I was with Elvis, I was with Michael Jackson. The difference is Michael is tied and Kobe is tied evergreen. It's not that much different.
That is why so many people view the situation differently now. One man used the loss as fuel to come back stronger. The other keeps revisiting the rivalry through podcast clips and debates years later. Fans notice that difference immediately. What also destroys Pierce's argument is the amount of respect Kobe still gets from players who actually lived through that era. Robert Horry and John Salley both spoke openly about how close Kobe really was to Michael Jordan, and Salley's opinion matters heavily because he was inside both worlds. He won championships with Kobe and also played alongside Jordan's Bulls dynasty. That means he saw both mentalities up close, inside real locker rooms, not from TV panels or internet debates. According to those players, the gap between Jordan and Kobe was extremely small.
When I look at LeBron, he's not what Michael was as a player. He's not even what Kobe Bryant was as a player. So when you talk about trying to compare Michael's instinct, his ability to take over games, his ability to want to have that last shot.
And demoralize you.
Yes.
And scare the living hell out of you.
LeBron doesn't have that gene.
Right.
Kobe has that gene.
That alone completely shakes Pierce's argument. Because now, it is not just fans defending Kobe. It is championship-level teammates and veterans who witnessed the preparation, the pressure, and the greatness firsthand. And then there is Scottie Pippen. Michael Jordan's own teammate for 6 championships has repeatedly shown massive respect toward Kobe's place in basketball history. When people that close to Jordan continue putting Kobe in elite company, it becomes a lot harder for Pierce's comments to sound believable. Scottie Pippen made the conversation even more uncomfortable for Paul Pierce when he placed Kobe Bryant above LeBron and pointed directly to the same mentality he saw while playing next to Michael Jordan. Not the stats, not the spreadsheets, not the efficiency debates people scream about online every day. Pippen was talking about that killer instinct, that cold-blooded mentality that changes the entire feeling of a game. The kind of presence that makes defenders nervous before the ball is even inbounded.
He is the reason why I woke up at 5:30 in the morning, why I chased my dream, because I saw how hard he worked. He was my inspiration and my idol. So somebody that was 3,000 miles away from me inspired me to be who I am.
According to Pippen, Kobe had that same energy Jordan had, and that opinion carries serious weight coming from somebody who actually lived through both eras. And honestly, the contrast between Kobe and Pierce becomes impossible to ignore once you start looking at the moments people remember most. Pierce needed a wheelchair exit during the finals, and the moment instantly became one of the most replayed clips of his career. Kobe tore his Achilles and still walked to the free throw line on his own before leaving the court. One moment became internet jokes, the other became basketball mythology. The entire league knows the difference, even if nobody says it out loud.
Do kind of take it personal because it's that dude meant everything to me. And this energy wasn't the same when he was here.
That is why this situation feels bigger than simple basketball rankings. Fans are not reacting emotionally just because Pierce criticized Kobe's game. They are reacting because Kobe represented something deeper to an entire generation of players and fans. Discipline, obsession, sacrifice, relentless work ethic. That mentality shaped how a lot of young athletes approached life itself. Jayson Tatum basically admitted that himself. Growing up all the way in St. Louis, thousands of miles away from Los Angeles, Tatum still woke up early every morning because Kobe inspired him to. Not Paul Pierce, not old Celtics legends, Kobe Bryant. And that says everything about the impact Kobe actually had on basketball culture.
As soon as I walked on the court, Cole was like, "Oh, that's what we doing, motherfucker?" And didn't say nothing to me the rest of the game.
When Kobe felt disrespected, he rarely sat around explaining himself publicly. He answered through performances, championships, and moments that forced people to stop talking. Silence first, then domination on the scoreboard. That was always his language. Tatum understands something Pierce still seems unwilling to accept. Kobe's legacy is not built only on percentages or advanced stats. It lives in the way he made people feel, the way he inspired players, and the fear he created every time the game got tight. Allen Iverson was taking nearly 30 shots a game during his MVP season, and people praised it like it was pure warrior mentality. They called it fearless, relentless, and competitive. But when Kobe Bryant carried that same aggressive mindset while also winning 5 championships, suddenly people started calling it selfish or inefficient.
And he's one of the 3 most influential basketball players of all time. Like, everybody loved, revered, respected, even from different sports, admired who he was. The year AI won an MVP, he shot 29 shots a game.
Yeah.
Like, he was shooting that shit every single time. But we all admire his competitiveness, how tough he was, how he got it done, how he was 6'1" and was the most fierce competitor in the world.
That is the contradiction fans keep pointing out, and it is exactly why so many people rolled their eyes at Paul Pierce's comments. Because the criticism always seems to change depending on whose name is attached to it. When Kobe did it, the conversation became obsessed with percentages and shot selection instead of results. And that argument gets shaky really fast once you realize Kobe backed it all up with championships, legendary playoff moments, and a reputation players still talk about with respect today.
What does failure mean? It doesn't exist. It's a figment of your imagination. So if you fail on Monday, the only way it's a failure on Monday is if you decide to not progress from that, right? So to me, that's why failure is not existent. Because, if I fail today, okay, I'm going to learn something from that failure and I'm going to try again on Tuesday.
The deeper part of this story is that Kobe never operated like a normal player mentally. His mindset had almost nothing to do with internet debates or advanced metrics. He genuinely approached basketball like a personal war against limits, weakness, and comfort. Pierce tries to reduce that mentality down to efficiency numbers, but the people around Kobe experienced something completely different. This was somebody riding 40 miles on a bike late at night, then waking up before sunrise to train again. Somebody who pushed teammates in practice constantly, not because he hated them, but because he wanted to know who could handle pressure when things got ugly. And Kobe's mentality was simple. If you showed him a new move, a new skill, or a new advantage, he was not going to admire it from a distance. He was going to study it, take it, improve it, and use it against you later. That was the edge that made players fear competing against him.
He would test guys in practice.
How would he test them?
Oh, elbowing them, talking to them, telling them they can't guard him. You got this guy out here, and this guy can't hold my jock.
From now on out, every time down the court, I touch the ball. Y'all gonna learn what it's like to play with Kobe Bean fucking Bryant.
How y'all gonna wear these shoes and y'all soft? Ain't what we do here in LA.
Every move Kobe Bryant saw, he studied. Every weakness he noticed, he remembered. And once he figured something out, he turned it into a weapon and used it right back against you with complete confidence. That is the part people still struggle to explain properly. The fear Kobe created did not come from interviews, podcasts, or social media debates. It came from what players experienced firsthand when they shared the court with him. Guys walked into games confident and walked out questioning themselves afterward. That kind of pressure changes how opponents think about basketball entirely.
As he's running down the court, pass me on the button, says, "You never should have showed me that step back."
But becoming Kobe Bryant came with a brutal cost. It was not just hard work and motivation speeches. It was years of damage on his body, injured knees, worn down shoulders, endless recovery sessions, ice packs every morning. training through pain most players would never even attempt to play through. For 20 straight years, Kobe pushed himself like somebody obsessed with squeezing every possible ounce out of his career. And when his Achilles finally tore, the moment instantly became legendary. Trainers rushed toward him offering help, but Kobe refused it all. He walked off under his own power because mentally, he would rather fight through the pain standing than allow himself to be carried out. That image stayed with basketball fans forever because it perfectly matched everything people believed about his mentality.
You know, when you're younger, you feel like your idols is like invincible.
Yeah.
I thought he was invincible. Like, I thought nothing ever like bad could happen to him. I remember I went to my room, I broke down crying. Like, it was a real like sad, like somber day. Like, the game ain't really matter and nobody was really speaking. Like, you could tell. Everybody just like felt heavy.
A lot of fans also quietly noticed the contrast people later connected to Paul Pierce's famous wheelchair moment during the finals. One clip became internet comedy. The other became a symbol of toughness that players still reference today. Then everything changed on January 26, 2020. The basketball world completely froze. Jayson Tatum was already in the NBA at that point, and the way he has spoken about that day tells you how deeply Kobe impacted younger players around the league. There was this unspoken feeling everywhere afterward, almost like the entire NBA community silently agreed that Kobe's contribution to basketball deserved a certain level of respect, no matter what debates people had. For years, most players seemed to honor that line. Then Paul Pierce's comments reopened the entire conversation again, and that is why the backlash exploded so quickly. Because to so many players and fans, Kobe was never just statistics on a basketball reference page. He was a mentality, a standard, a psychological force that pushed everybody around him harder. Opponents felt overwhelmed by him. Teammates often felt challenged by him until they earned his trust. And meanwhile, a kid growing up thousands of miles away in St. Louis was waking up before sunrise trying to copy that same discipline because Kobe's example reached that far. 5 championships, league MVP, 2 finals MVPs, countless legendary moments, and maybe most importantly, a level of work ethic that made even professional athletes feel uncomfortable about how hard they were actually pushing themselves. That is the legacy Paul Pierce decided to challenge publicly, which is exactly why Jayson Tatum did not dance around his response. He did not soften the language. He did not try to make everybody happy. He looked at the situation directly and called it what he believed it was: cowardly. If you think Pierce crossed the line, let people know in the comments. And if you want more NBA stories, rivalries, and behind-the-scenes moments people still argue about today, subscribe so you never miss the next one.